Okay, dito tayo sa Sociocultural Theory by Lev Vygotsky. So the social development theory is the work of this Russian psychologist whose work was largely unknown to the West until it was published in 1962. So his theory is one of the foundations of constructivism. It asserts three major themes regarding social interaction: the more knowledgeable other and the zone of proximal development. The social development theory argues that social interaction precedes development. Conscious and cognition are the end product of socialization and social behavior. So when we are able to socialize, when we are able to give appropriate social behavior, we it is understood na conscious din. Conscious yung mga ginagawa natin. Hindi natin pwedeng sabihin na hindi ko po, wala po ako sa sarili ko. Kasi nga, conscious ang paggawa natin sa ating behavior. Social interaction plays a fundamental role in the process of cognitive development. In contrast to Jean Piaget's understanding of child development, Vygotsky felt social learning precedes development. Kailangan, matuto muna daw tayo. Kailangan yung uh, society, matutunan natin ang mga bagay-bagay mula at sa loob din ng society. Yun nga yung uh, social learning. Bago tayo ma-develop. Yun ang sabi ni Vygotsky. Mauna daw muna ang social learning bago ang development. He states, every function in the child's cultural development appears twice. First on the social level and later on the individual level. Second, between people, that's interpsychological, and then inside the child. Matututo muna tayo kapag may nagtuturo sa atin. Yung pag sinabi nating nagtuturo, mula yun sa ating environment. Sa mga nakikita muna natin, sa mga nakakasalamuha natin, sa mga posibleng maka-impluwensya sa atin, bago yung personal natin. Kaya nga sabi dyan, and then inside the child. So between people first, and then yung personal mo, yung inside mo na nga. Ayan, sabi dito sa picture, a person's cognitive development is largely influenced by their surrounding culture. Kung sa environment mo, sa family mo, sa barangay ninyo, sa school mo, ay, for example, itong picture, pinapakita dyan, nagpe-pray sila. Kung ang kinalakihan mo, ang mga bagay na naka-impluwensya sa'yo ay uh, largely on religion, then kung ano yung mga tinuturo sa religion na yun, nadadala mo on a personal level. Okay? Okay. Next is bioecological theory. It was developed by Uri Bronfenbrenner. This is known as the human ecology theory. The ecological systems theory states that human development is influenced by the different types of environmental systems. Formulated by, ayun na nga, by Uri, this theory helps us understand why we may behave differently when we compare our behavior in the presence of our family and our behavior when we are in school or at work. Madami akong kilalang ganito na iba ang behavior nila sa school, iba ang behavior nila sa bahay. Sa school, sobrang gulo. Pagdating sa bahay, siya naman ay tahimik lang. Kala mo, di makabasag pinggan. Mga ganong kaplastikan. Kaya, ang sabi nga dito, depende ang behavior mo sa kung nasaan ka. Depende sa environmental system kung nasaan ka. Okay. There are 5 environmental systems. Ayan. The ecological, wait lang. The ecological systems theory holds that we encounter different environments throughout our lifespan that may influence our behavior in varying degrees. These systems include the microsystem, the mesosystem, the exosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem. So first, uh, the microsystem setting is the direct environment we have in our lives. So literal na kung nasaan ka, yun yung microsystem mo. For example, ngayon, nasa school ako. O, ito yung microsystem ko. Yung school. Itong polygraph room. The mesosystem involves the relationships between the microsystems in one's life. Okay. So, kung sino naman yung mga taong nakakasama mo, yung mga may connect sa'yo, yun. Sila yung parte ng mesosystem mo. So, this may be your family, your friends, kung nag-church ka, yung mga churchmates mo, baka nagbabanda ka, yung mga bandmates mo, and so on. The exosystem is the setting in which there is a link between the context wherein the person does not have any active role, the context wherein he is actively participating. Next na ba? Ayan. Okay. So, pag sinabi nating exosystem, may connect daw yung dalawang lugar. Yung isang lugar kung saan wala siyang active role at yung isa ay yung active siya. Yung link between that is your exosystem. Then when we say macrosystem, this setting is the actual culture of an individual. For example, ang kultura natin, Filipino, Kapampangan. Yun, kung ano yung kultura ng mga Kapampangan, dala natin. Kung ano yung kultura ng mga Pilipino, yung nagmamano, pag bumibisita tayo, hindi natin pinapasok yung tsinelas sa bahay, kahit nasabihin ng may-ari ng bahay, wag nang alisin ang tsinelas. Yung mga ganon. Parte ng kultura natin yan. Hindi tulad sa ibang bansa, talagang ipapasok nila yon. Hindi part ng culture nila na inaalis yung sapatos pag pumupunta ka sa bahay ng iba. Ayun, macrosystem natin yon, yung actual culture of an individual. And the chronosystem, this includes the transitions and shifts in one's lifespan. So, sa buhay mo, madami kang, kumbaga, phases na pagdadaanan. And yung paglipat mo from one phase to another is your chronosystem. Okay, for example, dumaan ba kayo sa emo phase? Emo. Familiar ba kayo sa term na yun? Sige nga, mag-unmute kayo. Ako din, dumaan ako sa ganung phase. Sino sa atin ang hindi? Pero nung time ko na yon, kwento ko sa inyo, high school. Ito yung panahon na yung nahihilig kami sa eyeliner. Kala mo naman, kinaganda namin yun, kinagwapo namin yun. Tapos, pero doon nag-start yung hilig ko rin sa banda. Babanda ako eh. Kasi yung hilig ko rin sa mga ganong music. Yan, may Chemical Romance, Paramore, ano pa ba? Valley of Chrome. Ganyan yung mga tugtugan namin, ganyan yung mga kino-cover namin. Pero yun, nadala ko hanggang ngayon. Ganun pa rin yung mga tugtugan ko. Pero yung iba, naging face lang sa kanila yon. Emo. Ngayon, K-pop na siya. Yung part na nagkaroon siya ng transition, that is your chronosystem. Shifts in one's lifespan. Or, pwede rin nating masabi na from teenager to young adult to young professional. Ayun, tapos medyo nung tumanda ka na, madami ka nang na-achieve sa career mo. Yun, nagkakaroon din ng shift. Nagkakaroon din ng transition sa lifespan mo. Okay. Ayan siya. And then, dito na tayo sa Moral Development Theory by Lawrence Kohlberg. So this is a very interesting subject that stemmed from Jean Piaget's theory of oral reasoning, developed by Lawrence Kohlberg. This theory made us understand that morality starts to form the early childhood years and can be affected by several factors. His ideas started from the research he performed with very young children as his subjects. He found out that children are faced with different moral issues, and their judgments on whether they are to act positively or negatively over each dilemma are heavily influenced by several factors. In each scenario that Kohlberg related to the children, he was not really asking whether or not the person in the situation is morally right or wrong, but he wanted to find out the reasons why these children think that the character is morally right or not. Gusto lang niyang malaman kung bakit daw iniisip ng bata kung morally right or morally wrong ba yung isa nilang characteristic. Okay. Hindi niya tinanong, kumbaga hindi ang point ng research niya is to identify kung tama ba o hindi yung ginawa ng bata. Ang gusto niyang malaman kung bakit iniisip ng bata kung tama o mali yung gawa niya. Okay. So the levels of moral development, stage level 1. Madami itong levels I think 4, 3. Ayan. So merong 3 levels. Dito muna tayo sa level 1, which is pre-conventional morality, the first level of morality. Pre-conventional morality can be further divided into 2 stages, obedience and punishment, and individualism and exchange. So sinabi nating punishment, obedience, orientation, this is the stage 1. This is related to Skinner's operational conditioning. This stage includes the use of punishment so that the person refrains from doing the action and continues to obey the rules. And then we have instrumental relativist orientation. In this stage, the person is said to judge the morality of an action based on how it satisfies the individual needs of the doer. Okay, balik tayo. Sa stage 1, punishment, obedience, orientation. Gumagawa ng isang bagay ang tao depende sa kung ano yung makukuha niya. Okay. Kung ang makukuha niya sa paggawa ng isang bagay ay punishment, then hindi niya gagawin yon. Kuha nyo? Kapag ang isang bagay, kapag yung bata, ginawa niya ang isang bagay, or iniisip niyang gawin ang isang bagay at napagtanto niya nga na kapag ginawa niya yon, maparurusahan siya. And then, he will refrain from doing the action. Hindi niya nagagawin kasi, ay, mapaparusahan ako kapag ginawa ko tong iniisip ko. And he will continue to obey the rules. So, hindi siya lalabag. Kaya nga, punishment obedience. Nakabase ang pagsunod sa kung ano yung matatanggap niyang punishment. And then stage 2 is instrumental relativist orientation. Ang sabi dito, gagawin ng isang tao ang isang bagay based on how it satisfies the individual needs of the doer. Kapag ginawa ng isang tao ang isang bagay at yung pangangailangan niya na-satisfy, then gagawin niya yun. Kuha. Next is level 2, conventional morality. The second level of morality involves stages 3 and 4 of moral development. Conventional morality includes the society and societal roles in judging the morality of an action. Stage 3 is good boy, nice girl orientation. In this stage, a person judges an action based on the societal rules and social expectations before him or her. This is also known as the interpersonal relationships phase. So, gagawin ng isang tao ang isang action base sa kung ano yung ini-expect mula sa kanya. For example, college ka na. So, ine-expect sa'yo na hindi ka na sinusubuan ng nanay mo, hindi ka na binibihisan ng nanay mo, hindi ka na pinaliliguan pa. Kaya ikaw, maliligo ka na mag-isa, magbibihis ka na mag-isa. Kasi nga, ine-expect sa'yo, ang social expectation, hindi mo na yun, yung mga ganong actions, hindi mo na inaasa sa iba. Ikaw na ang gumagawa nun. Okay, yun lang, yung simpleng example yun ha. Yung social expectation. Okay. And then law and order orientation. This stage includes respecting the authorities and following the rules as well as doing a person's duty. So when we say law and order orientation, ine-expect na ikaw sumusunod ka na sa mga authorities. Pag sinabi ng, kunyari, nagda-drive ka, so ine-expect na ikaw ay sumusunod na sa traffic enforcer. Kapag pinatigil ka ng traffic enforcer, titigil ka. Hindi pwedeng, hindi yung dire-diretso ka lang, yung wala kang pakialam sa iba. You are already respecting authorities and you are following the rules. Kung sa bata naman natin ito i-relate, si teacher. Sabi ni teacher, bawal maglaro, bawal magtakbo-takbo kahit na recess. So, expect mo na yung bata hindi nga tatakbo-takbo during recess. Yun. Because they already respect authorities. At yun nga, ang example natin is si teacher as a person in authority. And then we have level 3, post-conventional morality. The post-conventional morality includes stage 5 and stage 6. This is mainly concerned with the universal principles that relation to the action done. Stage 5 naman, sabi dito, social contract orientation. In this stage, the person look at various opinions and values of different people before coming up with a decision on the morality of the action. So, titignan muna ng isang tao kung ano yung tingin ng iba. Ano yung opinion ng isang tao? Ano yung opinion ng isa pa? Tapos, tsaka siya magpo-form ng sarili niyang opinion. Titignan niya kung moral ba o hindi yung action. Okay, that's social contract orientation. And then the last stage is the universal ethical principles orientation. The final stage of moral reasoning, this orientation is when a person considers universally accepted ethical principles. So yung kung ano yung ethical sa buong mundo. Yun nga, yung mga universally accepted ethical principles. So, for example, a universally accepted ethical principles is that ginagalang natin yung mas matanda sa atin. Yun, kumbaga, hindi mo siya kokontrahin kasi nga, this is a universally accepted ethical principle. Okay. Next is, what is abnormal behavior? So when we say abnormal, not normal. Yun na yun. Kung ano yung nagdi-deviate mula sa normal, abnormal yun. This is something deviating from the normal line pala, or differing from the typical, is a subjectively defined behavioral characteristic assigned to those with rare or dysfunctional conditions. Sabi dyan ha, it is subjectively defined behavioral characteristic. So, depende sa tao kung ano ang abnormal sa kanya. Kung sa pamilya nyo, normal na nagbibiruan, sa ibang pamilya, baka abnormal yon. Kung sa pamilya nyo, normal na hindi nagpapansinan, baka sa ibang pamilya, abnormal yon. Kaya nga siya, subjective. Okay. It is behavior that is deviant, maladaptive, or personally distressful over a long period of time. According to the American Psychiatric Association, in medical term, abnormal behavior is a mental illness that affects or is manifested in a person's brain and can affect the way a person thinks, behaves, and interacts with people. So again, abnormal behavior is a mental illness according to APA, American Psychiatric Association. Ano naman ang psychopathology? It is the scientific study of mental disorders, including efforts to understand their genetic, biological, psychological, and social causes. In a way, we criminologists also study psychopathology kasi inaalam din natin bakit ba nagkakos o gumagawa ng krimen ang isang tao. Okay. Effective classification schemes course across all stages of development, manifestations, and treatment. Okay. It is also defined as the origin of mental disorders, how they develop, and the symptoms they might produce in a person. That is psychopathology. Yung pag-aaral ng mga mental disorders. 4Ds. A description of the 4Ds when defining abnormality: deviance, distress, dysfunction, and danger. So when we say deviance, this term describes the idea that specific thoughts, behaviors, and emotions are considered deviant when they are unacceptable or not common in society. Kaya nga, naririnig nyo na ang term na deviant behavior. Nagdi-deviate siya mula dun sa normal. Ginagawa niya yung mga bagay na hindi normal. Sabi dito, these are considered deviant when they are unacceptable or not common in society. So, pwede rin na mag-iba ang definition or examples ng deviant behavior sa kung nasaan ka, sa kung anong kultura mo. Okay. Distress. This term accounts for negative feelings by the individual with the disorder. Again, negative feelings by the individual with the disorder. Then we have dysfunction. This term involves maladaptive behavior that impairs the individual's ability to perform normal daily functions, such as getting ready for work in the morning or driving a car. Yung mga normal na bagay at normal na ginagawa, hindi magawa, then that is dysfunction. Hindi ka makabangon kapag papasok ka na sa school. Yun, may dysfunction kayo pag ganun. Na naman yan, papasok na naman, tapos di ka makabangon. Then danger. This term involves dangerous or violence directed at the individual or others in the environment. Ayun. Yun na yung definition niya ng danger. Yung hindi ka makakilos dahil dangerous ka. Mapanganib ka para sa iba. Okay. Models of abnormality. We have behavioral and cognitive, medical, biological, psychodynamic. Okay, doon muna tayo sa behavioral. Behaviorists believe that our actions are determined largely by the experiences we have in life rather than by underlying pathology of unconscious forces. And then cognitive, the cognitive approach assumes that a person's thoughts are responsible for their behavior. O ulit, sinabi natin behavioral model of abnormality, yung mga actions daw natin ay base sa experience natin. Kung ano yung mga naranasan natin sa buhay. Kaya ganito ang actions natin. Okay. Pag sinabi naman cognitive, yung pag-iisip, yung person's thoughts, yun yung responsible kung bakit ganito ang behavior ng isang tao. And then we have medical or biological. The medical model of psychopathology believes that disorders have an organic or physical cause. Yung literal na may problem sa pag-iisip, that is medical or biological. And then psychodynamic. The main assumptions include Freud's belief that abnormality came from the psychological causes rather than the physical causes, that unresolved conflicts between the id, ego, and superego can all contribute to abnormality. If you can remember, si Freud is the father of psychoanalysis. At ang sinasabi nga dito sa psychodynamic model of abnormality na rather than the physical causes, that unresolved conflicts between the id-ego and superego can all contribute to abnormality, which came from psychological causes. Okay? Next is the identification of abnormal behavior. So first is deviation from statistical norm. The word abnormal means away from the norm. Yung hindi ka nga normal. Many population facts are measured such as height, weight, and intelligence. Most of the people fall within the middle range of intelligence, but a few are abnormally stupid. But according to this definition, a person who is extremely intelligent should also be classified as abnormal. So pag sinabing deviation from statistical norm, when we say statistical norm, this is the normal for most people. Yun. Normal for most people. Katulad daw sa intelligence. Sa intelligence kasi, sa IQ, madaming level. Merong below average, yun nga, merong stupid. And then merong average, and then above average, and then meron ding genius. Ang sinasabi dito, the normal is the average. Kasi yun yung madami, yung nasa pinakagitna. Pero kung nalabas ka doon sa gitna na yon, kumbaga below average ang IQ mo or above average ang IQ mo, then it may be considered abnormal behavior based on this classification, deviation from statistical norm. Okay. Nung elementary ako, nag-IQ test ako. Above average ako. So, kung yun ang susundin dito, abnormal daw ako. Kasi above average. Ewan ko lang ngayon. Baka abnormal pa rin. Sa ibang paraan. Intelligence. So, it is statistically abnormal for a person to get a score of about 145 on an IQ test. Abnormal na yon. Pag 145, ano yun? Genius. And, or to get a score below 55. Ayun naman. Medyo mahinang-mahina na ang utak nun. Tsaka yun na yung mga hindi rin nakakapag-function ng maayos. Kailangan talaga ng tulong. Yung mga may mabababang IQ. But only to the lowest score is considered abnormal. And then anxiety. A person who is anxious all the time or has a high level of anxiety are all considered to be abnormal. Kasi normal naman na may mga pagkakataong kinakabahan tayo, di tayo mapakali. Pero may mga pagkakataon na OA, gamitin na natin yung term na OA, yung pagka-anxious natin. Kapag ganun na ang nangyari, yung OA na ang pagka-anxious, then abnormal behavior na siya because you are suffering from anxiety or extreme anxiety. And then we also have deviation from social norm. Kanina, statistical norm. Every culture has certain standards for accepted behavior. Behavior that deviates from the standard is considered to be abnormal behavior. Basta hindi katanggap-tanggap sa isang society o hindi normal sa isang society, then that is deviation from social norm. But those standards can change with time and vary from one society to another. For example, dati, ang pagiging tomboy o bakla is considered an illness. Actually, it's considered an illness by the American Psychiatric or Psychological Society. Pero, kalaunan, siguro 1960s, kung tama ang memory ko, mga ganong panahon, inalis na siya sa mga mental illness. Kasi nga, pag tomboy ka dati, may sakit ka sa pag-iisip. Kasi hindi ka normal. Pero ngayon, dahil inalis na siya ng APA sa kanilang list ng mga mental illnesses, then in that sense, nagiging accepted na yung mga ganong tao by our society. Kaya sinasabi dito, those standards can change with time and vary from one society to another. Iba yung mga katanggap-tanggap sa isang society and iba rin yung katanggap-tanggap sa iba pang society. And then we have maladaptive behavior. The third criterion is how the behavior affects the well-being of the individual and or social group. A man who attempts suicide or a paranoid individual who tries to assassinate national leaders are illustrations under this criterion. The effects of maladaptive behavior are maladaptive to oneself, maladaptive to society. Yan. And then pag sinabi natin maladaptive to oneself, it refers to the inability of a person to reach goals or to adapt the demands of life. Yung hindi niya nga makuha yung kanyang mga goals. Hindi niya talaga ma-reach yun. And then maladaptive to society, it refers to a person's obstruction or disruption to social group functioning. Hindi siya makapag-function in a social group. Hindi siya marunong makipagtrabaho. Hindi siya marunong makisama sa mga nakapaligid sa kanya. Yun yung maladaptive to society. Yung maladaptive to oneself, sarili ang kalaban. Okay. Then number 4 is personal distress. The fourth criterion considers abnormality in terms of the individual's subjective feelings, personal distress, rather than his behavior. Most people commonly diagnosed as mentally ill feel miserable, anxious, depressed, and may suffer from insomnia. And then we have number 5, failure to function adequately. If a person is considered abnormal if they are unable to cope with the demands of everyday life. They may be unable to perform the behaviors necessary for the today. For day-to-day living. For the today. For example, self-care. Hold down a job, interact meaningfully with others, make themselves understood. So, hindi mo maalagaan sarili mo, baka hindi ka pa marunong magsuklay. Hindi ka tumatagal sa trabaho kasi hindi ka marunong makisama, ayaw mong inuutusan ka, nakikipagtrabaho ka nga. So, ganun, wala kang kaibigan. Okay. So, the following characteristics that define failure to function adequately are suffering, maladaptiveness, vividness, and unconventionality. Yun nga, stands out. Talagang kakaiba ka eh. Unpredictability and loss of control, irrationality, incomprehensibility, causes observer discomfort, violates moral and social standards. Then deviation from ideal mental health. Under this definition, rather than defining what is abnormal, we define what normal or ideal is. And anything that deviates from this is regarded as abnormal. This requires us to decide on the characteristics we consider necessary to mental health. The 6 criteria by which mental health could be measured are positive view of the self, capability for growth and development, autonomy and independence, accurate perception of reality, positive friendships and relationships, and environment mastery, wherein you are able to meet the varying demands of day-to-day situations. Okay. According to this approach, the more of these criteria are satisfied, what the individual is. Okay, then symptoms of abnormal behavior. We have long periods of discomfort, impaired functioning, bizarre behavior, and disruptive behavior. So when we say long periods of discomfort, this could be anything as simple as worrying about a calculus test or grieving the death of a loved one. And then, sabi lang naman dito, these are long periods of discomfort. Talagang hindi lang mabuti ang pakiramdam mo, pero matagal. And then we have impaired functioning. Here, a distinction must be made between simply a passing period of inefficiency and prolonged inefficiency, which seems unexplainable. Pag sinabing impaired functioning, hindi lang basta ah, tinamad ka sa isang pagkakataon or hindi ka lang makapag-isip ng maayos sa isang pagkakataon. Kumbaga, matindi na yung wala kang ginagawa, matindi na yung pagiging inefficient and ineffective mo sa trabaho, sa school. That's impaired functioning. Bizarre behavior. Isa pa to sa mga symptoms na meron kang abnormal behavior. So, a bizarre behavior that has no rational basis seems to indicate that the individual is confused. And then we have disruptive behavior. This means impulsive, apparently uncontrollable behavior that disrupts the lives of others or deprives them of their human rights on a regular basis. Hindi ka na makontrol. Masyado ka nang magulo, nakakaapekto ka na rin sa iba. May pagkakataon na pati basic human rights ng iba, hindi mo marespeto. Ito na yun, disruptive behavior. Talagang magulo ka na. Okay? So that's it for Module 1.